Listen up, here's the deal, jobber. Your entire life is a work, and you're the only one in the locker room who doesn't know the finish. Call it what you want. The mortgage that owns you, the raise that never comes, the job that grinds you down 6 days a week and calls it opportunity. Someone booked all of it, and it ain't ending with you going over. The man who figured out how to sell it to you, his name was Vince McMahon. On television, a smiling mouthpiece in a cheap suit calling the matches. Off camera, a ruthless promoter running shows in arenas that smelled like sweat, cigarettes, and cheap beer. People think Vince was just lucky or hungry. They forget he always knew where the exits were before he walked in the room, and the whole thing ran on one single principle. The best way to fleece a mark is to let him think he's in on the trick. Right now, you're working the program you didn't book in a town you didn't choose for a promoter who already knows how the night ends. McMahon staged 5 specific moves, all documented, all repeatable. And every one of them is being run on you right now by people who understood psychological manipulation long before it had a name. Move 1. The work. Before Vince, the wrestling business was a handshake club. Regional bosses, their own territories, their own rules. Kind of buildings where you ran the road 6 nights a week and considered yourself lucky if the office didn't short your payoff. You stayed in your lane or you didn't work. Vince looked at that and didn't see tradition. He saw small-minded operators leaving a fortune on the table just to avoid a fight. So he raided their top drawers like a man emptying someone else's refrigerator. Any slimy suit with a bankroll can buy a market, but what he did next, that's the part nobody saw coming. Here's what drives outsiders absolutely nuts about pro wrestling. The fans always knew it was fake, laid out in the back before anyone ever laces a boot. Those punches missed by 6 inches and 80,000 people in a stadium knew every bit of it and still screamed themselves hoarse anyway. Why? How do you build $1 billion business out of something everybody knows is a hoax? Because Vince wasn't selling a sport, he was selling relief. He built a world where the good guy takes his beating, keeps getting up, and eventually puts the bad guy in the dirt. A place where hard work actually means something and justice finally lands. Maybe not tonight, maybe not next week, but it lands. That reality feels a hell of a lot better than the one waiting for his audience when the alarm went off the next morning. Vince wasn't in the entertainment business. He was in the business of selling people a version of the world they could actually survive in. Get it? Now, think about that truck in your driveway that's got you by the throat with payments. You didn't sign those papers because the machine was better. You signed them so the neighbors would think you're winning while the debt eats you alive. Or that job where you're grinding 60 hours a week, you ain't staying because it's working. You're staying because the lie is easier to swallow than admitting you're just another carcass on a meat hook. That ain't weakness, kid. That's you choosing a story that feels worth the price of the ticket. People pay for the version that lets them sleep at night. And the man who controls that version ain't competing for your attention. He owns it. Lock, stock, and barrel. Owning the story is fine when you're the only game in town. Keeping it when the checks start bouncing and the boys are jumping ship for a bigger guarantee, that's a whole different animal. Vince didn't play defense. He reached into the one thing people can't fake, their hatred. Move 2. Nuclear heat. In the late 90s, Vince is looking at the lights every single week. Ted Turner opens his checkbook and starts picking the locker room clean. Hogan, Savage, the whole top of the card, gone. WCW runs 83 straight weeks of winning the Monday Night Wars. 83 weeks of Vince staring at the ceiling, you know? Every rag in the business already hammering nails into the casket. Any normal operator curls up and takes the count, not the old man. Vince invented Mr. McMahon, the villain, a suit-wearing, power-drunk tyrant who rigged every match and humiliated his own people on live TV. He played it himself, prime time. And he wasn't fishing for booze. He wanted nuclear heat. The kind that makes a working man spend money he doesn't have just to watch someone put a steel chair across that smug face. When a heel gets that kind of heat, kid, he's printing money, because anger needs a target. The rage his audience was already carrying. The company that put a ping pong table in the office and called it culture while it was cutting your benefits. The system that punished loyalty and rewarded backstabbers. The authority that shook your hand on Friday and fired you on Saturday. All of it was fully loaded, looking for somewhere to land. Vince just handed him the address. He didn't stumble onto that nerve. He identified the exact frequency his audience was vibrating at and built a character designed to absorb every last volt of it. That ain't showmanship. That's a man who figured out how to pick 20 million pockets at once and get a standing ovation doing it. Ratings flipped inside 12 months. Now you think about the last time somebody got promoted over you. You know they didn't outwork you, but that guy figured out something you didn't. The boss wasn't counting your hours. That guy made him feel safe, feel smart, feel like he made the call. He was buying a feeling of... and that guy sold it to him every single day while you were too busy being right to notice. Vince didn't react to the story. He wrote the finish before anyone else even picked up the pen. Politicians, corporations, the boss you report to every Monday morning. They've all been running his exact playbook on you for years, and if you think that move only works in a wrestling ring, wait till you see what he did when the kayfabe started to blow. I know exactly what's going through that head of yours right now. Nah, I don't fall for that carny crap. No, I'm too smart for the old tricks and too jaded for the new ones. Sure, let's find out. Austin, The Rock, the Dead Man. Pick one, don't matter which. That jolt in your pulse when the glass shatters or the bell's tolled, look, that ain't yours. That's a reflex Vince programmed into you while you were still in diapers. He decided what those guys meant, how you felt when they stood tall, and exactly how much it hurt when they lost the strap. He burned that program so deep into your skull it's still running on automatic 20 years later. And you're really sitting there telling me you can't be worked? That ain't a knock. That's a mark getting a chair shot to the ego. While you think about it, drop your guy in the comments. The Rattlesnake, the Great One, or the Dead Man? Let's see which one Vince worked the deepest into your head. And if you still think that skepticism of yours makes you the exception, you're exactly the kind of mark he designed Move 3 for. Move 3, the smart mark. The internet slams the stage and kayfabe gets tombstoned. That old code of silence that kept the business alive for 50 years, dead overnight. Fans start leaking finishes, talking backstage politics, acting like they're part of the office. Every other promoter panics and tries to hold the line. Vince did the exact opposite. He started bleeding real backstage tension into the scripts. Real hatred. The kind that doesn't need writing because it's already sitting in the locker room waiting to blow. He blurred the lines so damn well the audience couldn't tell where the work ended and the shoot began. Contract disputes that were real. Guys who genuinely couldn't stand each other having to shake hands on. He didn't write that tension. He just pointed a camera at it. And out of that mess, he created the smart mark. The guy who reads the dirt sheets, knows all the lingo, thinks he's seen behind the curtain. Too smart to be worked like a regular mark. Or so he thought. A guy who'd never been to gorilla position in his life, but talked like he lived there. Vince worked him twice as hard. That hunger to be the insider, the one who actually sees what's happening, was a weak spot so deep Vince could reach into it anytime he wanted. He didn't kill kayfabe. He bottled it up and sold it back to you with a different label, the oldest hustle in the book. Let me tell you something. You know that guy waving the foam finger at every arena? The one who can't afford the front row ticket but bought the finger anyways? That's you every time you pay for a Discord channel that tells you when to buy crypto, or drop money on the passive income course from the guy with the rented Lambo, or the OF sub to a girl who hires someone in Asia for $1 a day to text you back. You ain't looking behind the curtain, kid. You're just paying for a better seat in the front row. Knowing the trick exists doesn't make you immune to it. It just makes you a more expensive mark. The move that locked it all in for Vince wasn't building the audience. It was what he did to the one man who had the nerve to walk out on him. Move 4, the Screwjob. It's 97 up in Montreal, and Bret Hart is the guy who's been carrying the bricks for 13 years. He's the champ, but he's walking for a bigger check with the other guys. Fine, we all got bills, I get it, but Bret won't drop the strap on his home turf, not in front of his people. He thought all that sweat and bleeding for the company bought him a seat at the table. He fell for his own gimmick, man. He thought pride and loyalty cashed checks. Vince looks him in the eye and gives him a handshake. Dignity intact. Just two guys who built the house together, keeping their word. Then the bell rings. Mid-match, Vince walks to the ring, looks right at the timekeeper and calls for the bell while Bret's still locked in a submission. Bret never tapped. The ref grabs the gold and hauls ass out of the arena. Live. Pay-per-view. Right in front of Bret's own blood. Bret spits right in Vince's face in front of millions. Vince stands there and takes it and doesn't flinch. Ask yourself why. Because that spit was worth more than the business. It was the future. You think he cared about getting clocked backstage by Hart? Hell no. That was just more gas in the tank. He took Bret's genuine shoot, heart, break and poured it over the Mr. McMahon character. The villain absorbed the heat and the businessman got 10 times richer. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Bret handed Vince the weapon because he showed him exactly what he cared about. Whatever you do, no matter what, keep it simple. Don't show your hand before you need to. Not to your boss, not to your partner, not to the guy across the table. The less they know about where you hurt, what you need, and how bad you want it, the less they got to use against you when the handshake stops meaning anything. Bret handed Vince everything he needed before it even started. Don't be Bret. Bret was right. Vince won. Those have never been the same thing. At the end of the night, Vince walked out of Montreal with everything he needed to print money for the next 5 years. The dead weight was gone, the villain didn't need introducing anymore, and Stone Cold Steve Austin was waiting in the wings. Move 5, the Booker. By 01, he'd bought WCW right out from under Turner's nose. Didn't just win the Monday Night Wars, bought the other side's flag. That feud with Austin, that weren't just good television. That was a blue-collar working man beating the boss every Monday night in front of 15 million people who needed to see it happen. Best buy Vince ever made was his own villain, and somewhere between them, sweaty regional armories in the 80s and selling out stadiums in Tokyo and London in the 90s, the whole damn thing stopped being a carny secret and became something your kid's teacher knew about. He took a hustle that was never supposed to leave the county and put it on every screen in the world, and if that wasn't enough, then sold it all for God only knows how many billions. That's the Booker Kid. He don't perform, he don't take bumps. He holds the pencil, writes the script, and pockets the gate, and he's the only one in the room who can't get buried, because he decides what buried means. Now look at your own life. Some suit in a high-rise who couldn't pick you out of a lineup, rigged the whole fight before you ever laced up. He decided who the heroes are and who the heels are, what loyalty costs and what you're supposed to fear. Your boss calls it restructuring. The board calls it AI efficiency. You know damn well it's AI washing, same as pandemic-era overhiring or whatever name they were hiding behind last time. You get 2 weeks severance and a LinkedIn recommendation nobody asked for. The guy who made the call pockets a 7-figure bonus for streamlining operations, and you're cleaning out your desk while his stock options vest. Not one of them lost a minute of sleep over your end of the deal. So let me ask you something, kid. Whose booking sheet are you on right now? You've been staring at the lights your whole damn life, feeling every bump, trusting every handshake, wondering why the right people never seem to win. They do win. You just ain't been the one deciding what winning means. Vince proved it 40 years ago. The guy taking the bumps never writes the finish. And the real kick in the teeth, you know the punches miss, you know the brass ring is made of plastic, and you know the whole show is rigged. We all know it's fake. And I ain't talking about wrestling. But tomorrow morning, that alarm is going to go off. You're going to drag yourself out of bed, sit in an hour of traffic, and walk right back into their arena. You're going to hit your marks, take your bumps, and sell their finish all over again. Not because you don't know it's a work. You do it because you're too damn terrified to grab the pencil and book the territory yourself. Keep taking the bumps, kid. They love how you sell.